This is 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson. Nizam Mohammed is a former member of parliament and speaker of the House of Representatives in Trinidad and Tobago. He's also a prominent figure in the Islamic community. He was recently involved in what you may call the latest attempt to unite that community between Afro and Indo-Muslims, bringing them together. Mr. Mohammed is also a well-respected, prominent attorney and former chairman of the Police Service Commission. Most recently, however, he was part of a three-member team which met with the Prime Minister concerning calls for the government to get involved in bringing home women and children, citizens of this country who were stuck in camps in Syria and wanting to return home. In what appears to have been a surprise shift in its posture, the government undertook to begin the process of repatriation. Mr. Mohammed has agreed to speak with us on the matter. He's our guest for this edition of the program. Good to see you, sir, and thanks for coming on.
Hello. Good morning. A very good morning to you, Andy.
Well, good to have you. Well, good morning as well. There's reporting in the paper today, in the two newspapers that I looked at this morning about a meeting in San Fernando yesterday towards the formation of what is called a committee to push ahead with this decision to repatriate citizens from wherever they are. But we're talking mainly here about those people in Syria. I want to get to that in a moment, but I want to go back to that meeting that you led together with retired diplomat Patrick Edwards and Kwesi Atiba with the Prime Minister a couple of weeks ago. What led to that? Given, and I'm asking the question, given the fact that the government didn't seem to be in a mood to entertain any such discussions, because just prior to that, you had a visit in the country from two ladies from Human Rights Watch, and they were campaigning against it, for that to happen, but they left with a sense that they didn't get the kind of response they wanted from the government.
We were approached. Sorry?
Yes.
I was saying that we were approached about a month ago. The Prime Minister approached me and asked me to assist in putting something in place with respect to the repatriation of these people who have been held in detention camps abroad. And it is now public knowledge that he has asked me to chair a three-man committee, Kwesi Atiba and Patrick Edwards, who is a retired diplomat from the Foreign Service of Trinidad and Tobago. Three of us are the members of that committee. And 2 days ago, we had a meeting with the Minister of National Security, and that was a follow-up to the one that you have just mentioned, the meeting at Whitehall with the Prime Minister and four of his senior ministers. And we are beginning to settle down and to put things together to make an arrangement to see to what extent we can succeed in getting our citizens thrown back home here in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah. Do you agree this where we're at now is a kind of turnaround from the government, probably led by the Prime Minister? Because the sense that we had with the visit here of the two people from Human Rights Watch...
The audio is very faint. I'm not hearing the question.
Yeah. I'm asking you to what extent you think it's a turnaround on the government's part for the Prime Minister to get involved himself and to drive this effort, or to begin to drive this effort?
Several things have been happening. Other countries are making efforts and they are doing their bit, and in some piecemeal way we are seeing that they are succeeding. Canada, for example, Barbados, one or two people, and I guess also that the international pressure is building with respect to these people, because they have been there for quite a long time. And it is not that Trinidad and Tobago is not doing anything. Minister Stuart Young, when he was Minister of National Security, he had put together something called the Nightingale Committee. and it was a committee that brought in people from different streams, and looking at the whole, looking at the idea of repatriation in a holistic kind of way, and the ramifications of just bringing back people to Trinidad and Tobago. And their work has been ongoing, and we have come on, and we have come into the picture as rather to augment what they were doing. And it is necessary to have these offices, and one was allocated in Port of Spain 2 days ago, and yesterday we formally commissioned the one here in San Fernando. So, someone, my neighbor, is using a drill, my friend.
Yes, I hear him. I thought it was cars passing or something, but somebody's working next to you.
Yes, so I will say that things are happening. And if I could get that drill to cease for 5 minutes, I'm embarrassing.
Yeah. All right, well, let's see. Let's see how we can work around it. All right, well. Okay, we're going to take a break. We come back shortly. Let's see if we can sort this out. So stay with us. This is 10 questions. We'll be back in a moment.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Site, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. only on WESN, Content Capital.
Welcome back to the program. This is 10 questions here on WESN. The discussion on this edition of the program, the decision by the government to move ahead with trying to repatriate or with repatriating Trinidad and Tobago nationals stuck in these camps in Syria. It's been no-go for a long time. Only a couple of weeks ago, 2 representatives of the international organization called Human Rights Watch were in Port of Spain trying to jug the government into that direction, and they left without getting a good sense as to what the government's position was. But weeks ago, the Prime Minister met with 3 members of a team to push the engine forward on the matter. And that team was led by Mr. Nizar Mohammed. He's our guest in the program. So let's talk a little bit about that. You said that the Prime Minister had called you. That was before you all went to meet him in Port of Spain, yourself and Mr. Edwards and Mr. Atiba. How did that threesome get together?
How did the threesome get together?
Well, I mean, how was that committee formed? Was it, you said the Prime Minister called you and asked you, if you were willing
Yes,
to?
the Prime Minister, the Prime Minister called us separately.
Yeah, so that was his initiative to put that team together.
He did indicate to me that he had 2 others in mind, and I told him that I don't mind working with the 2 others.
Yes. And so what are some of the first steps that have to be taken? And you all see, you had this meeting in San Fernando yesterday that I said we will get to, and you were reported as talking about the fact that there's no room for radicalism in Trinidad and Tobago. And that continues to be a sentiment of a lot of people who have been around this issue. People who have views on it one way or the other. And a part of the public sentiment is that the people who find themselves in this predicament, they took those options. But in a lot of cases, is it not the case that it's men who took their wives and children with them on this adventure? And in some cases, many of them got killed or fled from there. And in the main, the people who are looking to come home are the wives and the children of some of these men?
This is our information, that it is mostly women and children. And but be that as it may, part of the process will involve the debriefing of the women to find out, what is their present condition and their attitude, having had the experience of being held as virtual prisoners and in a place where they have lived under subhuman conditions and all of that. So, from the very outset, I said it is going to be a very tedious exercise, and it is turning out to be that. But we are, in fact, making some progress. We are beginning to open up our communications with other countries through their embassies, etc. And one of the objectives or early tasks, now that we have established the office, is to compile a database so that we will know the number of people we are dealing with and, as far as possible, their location and which country or countries we will have to be discussing retrieval and repatriation. Turkey, for example, Syria, Iraq. Word is that some of our people might be somewhere in Cyprus, for all you know. But we want to actually make sure that we have reliable evidence, and that's why we are working. We will be working on a database as one of our first priorities.
Yes, and there was an effort before this in which an attorney in Port of Spain was involved. C.J. Williams and an former independent senator was working with him on that. And when last we spoke about that, months ago, they talked about the fact that those people with whom they had been in touch had worked out some kind of a commitment to stay away from such activity going forward, and they were working on that to declare that they would forswear whatever decisions that they took, and that they would forswear any attempt to return to that kind of thinking as something to put on the table for consideration. But that effort seemed to have stalled somewhere as well.
Well, I'm not surprised that any such effort would have stalled, because the only way something meaningful can happen is when negotiations or efforts are being made on a government-to-government basis. Because I do not believe that a lot of us fully grasp the implications of dealing with a situation where you are trying to retrieve people who are held up in a war-torn, in a war zone. You know, and a war zone is a place where, you know, there is a total emergency kind of establishment of a tent city, and you don't know who is in charge, you don't know how you can gain safe access into that kind of place, and there are no institutional framework that would allow you to go through normal channels and get the kind of results that you can, which you can regard as reliable and official. So we have to rely on the assistance. You cannot go into any one of these countries without the assistance of the government.
Yeah, and there, from my readings, from some of the things around this matter is that are there parts of Syria, and probably one part of Syria that where these people are, that is in dispute as to who really controls it?
Well, the thing about it is that part that you are referring to, Turkey is describing that as a buffer zone. And they are saying that they are in control because the buffers are using it as a buffer zone, albeit it is Syrian territory. It is in their security interest to maintain that buffer zone, and they claim that they are in control. Whereas the Syrian Liberation Army, a combination rather of the Syrian Liberation Army and the Kurds, they are saying that they are in control of these camps. And the Syrians are saying they want back their land, and their land is being held by Turkey. So the Kurds, you don't know where the Kurds, which side the Kurds are on. And it is as complicated as that.
In a situation like that.
The fact of the matter is that the entire situation is one of uncertainty, and we have to go seeking that kind of help. And what that has given rise to is a lot of fly-by-night organizations and individuals claiming to be experts in matters of repatriation and so on, and ready and willing to accommodate clients. But I don't think that the government of Trinidad and Tobago would be minded, and rightly so, to go to such for any kind of assistance. The best way to deal with this situation is through official means.
And
it's not an easy thing. It is not an easy thing, Andy.
Yes.
So even if you fix people's papers to travel out of Syria or Turkey, for that matter, to come to Trinidad in an aircraft without making all the preliminary travel arrangements, which I say very complex and very, very cumbersome. A lot of these people have been there since 2018 or 2017 for that matter. You don't even know if they have travel documents. How are their travel documents to be made, to be updated and made valid? What about the children who were born there and who have not been issued birth certificates? You know, this gives you an idea, these issues that I am raising, they give you an idea of the complexity of the situation. Who is to issue birth certificates? You don't issue birth certificates through hearsay and them say and we say and so on. You've got to have DNA testing. DNA testing is a is a very expensive procedure. And where are you having, who is going to have this DNA testing done for 53, perhaps 53 children or so that we are hearing from some of these families? You know, one word we could describe the situation, and that word is it's a nightmare.
So what are some of the first steps that your committee has decided to take?
Well, we are, and we can only go as fast as we get responses from our counterparts abroad. So we are in touch with the Turkish government, we are in touch with the Syrian government, we are in touch with embassies, etc., etc. And as soon as information comes to hand, the families in Trinidad, they themselves, they have a list of names and locations of some people, and that is going to be a starting point that we can work on. So there is a view that that starting point could create some kind of partial repatriation, while others are arguing that the ideal situation is to hire an aircraft and get that flight as a direct flight into Trinidad from Syria or Turkey or wherever. But again, it's not a direct flight does not mean flying over territories, and you have to get permission for that, and landing for refueling and all that kind of thing. So I don't know that Carl has any wide-bodied aircrafts to hold 100 plus for that kind of distance and that sort of thing.
All right. Well, the people from Human Rights Watch, when they were here a couple of weeks ago, they said that they have information that the United States government has offered or has been offering to provide assistance to bring those people out and back here. To what extent your committee would be or is seeking to meet with them, because they seem to, with their network, gives the sense that they have people on the ground who would have collected statements and comments from the people there, some of them there, and they know, you know, they showed us and they talked to us about interviews their representatives have had with some of the people.
Once credible and reliable information is available, we will source such information. We have no problems dealing with Human Rights Watch and all of them. But also, as I indicated earlier on, also what is cropping up is a number of quote-unquote agents who are there, and they are posing as experts, you know, who I don't know what kind of expertise that this situation has, this situation requires, except making travel arrangements and all that, all the conditions that require travel to be looked at.
And probably wanting to get paid for their efforts if they get
well, this is, last night at the formal opening of the office, I said, once you hear that the state becomes involved, there is a perception that the state has created a trough, a feeding trough. And in this particular case, I can tell you that is not so. Andy, I have been getting calls from the United States, you know, people offering themselves as experts, and they will sort out this matter for us, and there is no difficulty, etc., etc., etc. And I'm telling you, we are getting several offers like that, but the Minister of National Security made it clear last night that the government of Trinidad and Tobago is dealing with its several government departments and several ministries and other private sector entities in Trinidad and Tobago, and we will be dealing, or rather the government will be dealing with its counterpart um, in other countries where we have diplomatic relations.
Right. So the Minister of National Security, that's your point person. Is it going further from him? Is it a question you're seeing at this point yet that in some cases you're going to have to separate the wheat from the chaff in terms of some of these players on the sidelines who may in fact prove to be valuable if you check their bona fides and so on?
Yes. In order for us, if you're talking about, you played it a bit there, but if you're talking about, there has to be a verification exercise with respect to those individuals who will be repatriated. Okay?
Yes.
And that may, and this is just my view, and it may have to change. And my view is that there might have to be an advanced team of the appropriate people going there in order to carry out that verification exercise. Immigration officials, medical personnel, and that sort of thing. And that could be not only expensive, but time-consuming as well, and that will require the kind of international help that can come only from governments, because you're sending people, civilians rather, in a war zone, and you want to ensure that people will have a safe passage and a safe reception.
Yes, and the Human Rights Watch people had also said that they know that the United States government, not sure which agency, had offered to bring those nationals of Trinidad and Tobago out and back here. To what extent that is something you would pursue, or is that part of your mandate at all?
But that could be looked at, but it is our responsibility to put our house in order, and if it becomes an option for us to consult with the United States in terms of transportation or whatever, we will have no problem, looking at that option. But we are not close to any idea once we are comfortable with what the arrangements that are being made.
Yeah. It seems as though you've just entered an arena there that will consume your efforts and time for some time to come.
Well, it appears so, and as I say, we can only move as fast as we get responses from those who we are trying to seek help from. But I don't think that initially it is the proper thing to do to go and seek help from another country to make arrangements for us, whereas it is going to be at our expense, and we have the resources to make our own arrangements as a sovereign country.
And what is your sense, you just have probably a minute or two left now, what is your sense as to, correct me if I'm wrong, that there seemed to have been some kind of reluctance from the administration up to this point, up to the point where the Prime Minister called you?
Reluctance from who?
From the government. Up to the point where you said the Prime Minister called you and told you, well, he would like to have you chair this committee.
Apparently, the government was relying solely on the Nightingale Committee, and which I think the government has realized was an error, in the sense that you did not have an input from the Muslim community. You didn't have the right type of interaction and the right type of connection with relatives of the affected persons who are being held up abroad. And I think the government has moved to put that right. And so far, it seems to be working, you know, and we are very optimistic that, you know, I think the feedback from last night's meeting is that the relatives are feeling a greater sense of assurance that we are getting off the ground.
All right, we're gonna have to leave it there. But thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed.
Always a pleasure, Andy. All the best.
Thank you very much, Nizam Mohammed, Chair
You're
of
welcome.
this government-appointed committee that's working on bringing people, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, out of those camps in Syria, in particular. This has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
WESN